Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Travel Secrets with TV's Dave Galvin, the podcast where we go beyond the brochures, beyond the obvious tourist attractions, and beyond what the internet's first page of search results wants you to know. Today, we're going to go to Hawaii. But we're really not going to go to Waikiki. In fact, we're going to spend most of this episode getting away from it. Waikiki is famous for a reason. It's beautiful, it's convenient, it's packed with restaurants, hotels, shopping, nightlife, beaches, and just about everything else a visitor could possibly want. But here's the problem. For some travelers, Waikiki becomes their entire definition of Hawaii. They fly into Honolulu, they take a taxi or a shuttle to Waikiki, they get to their hotel, the beach, they walk down the avenue, they eat at restaurants, they do a luau, and then they fly home and say, hey, I've been to Hawaii. Yeah, technically you've been to Hawaii, but Hawaii is so much more than Waikiki. And if you want to experience a different side of the islands, one that's quieter, more dramatic, more natural, and sometimes considerably more luxurious, you need to get beyond the postcard. So today we're going to explore what Hawaii looks like when you venture beyond Waikiki. And we're going to talk about places, experiences, and travel strategies that can turn an ordinary Hawaiian vacation into something extraordinary. So sit back, relax, and let's get out of Waikiki. So let's start with the obvious. Waikiki is spectacular. There's nothing wrong with staying there. For a first-time visitor, it can actually be a fantastic base. You've got Diamond Head rising dramatically in the background. You've got the Pacific Ocean directly in front of you. You've got restaurants everywhere. You can walk to shopping. You can find entertainment. There's a huge range of accommodations, but Waikiki is also heavily developed. Hotels line the streets. Traffic is frustrating. Sidewalks can be crowded, and during peak periods, the beach can feel less like a remote tropical paradise and more like a very attractive urban beach. That's not necessarily bad. It's just different. And if what you're looking for is the Hawaii you see in the travel commercials, the empty beach, the lush mountains, the winding roads, the waterfalls, the quiet villages, you may need to leave Waikiki behind. The good news, you don't have to go very far. Here's something many visitors just don't realize. You don't have to leave Oahu to escape this. Oahu itself has dramatically different personalities. Drive just a short distance from Honolulu and the landscape starts changing. The buildings disappear, the mountains become more prominent. And suddenly you're looking at a completely different Hawaii. Let's start with the North Shore. The North Shore is legendary amongst the surfers. During the winter months, enormous waves can transform this coastline into the world's great surfing destinations. But you don't have to be a professional surfer to enjoy the North Shore. In fact, you don't have to surf at all. You can drive the coastline, stop at beaches, explore small communities, grab food from local businesses, and enjoy a much slower pace. And that brings us to another Hawaiian experience that people just sometimes overlook, and that's the food. One of the easiest ways to experience a different side of Hawaii is to get out of the resort restaurant. Hawaii's food culture is fascinating because it's a combination of influences from native Hawaiian traditions and generations of immigration from places that include Japan, China, Korea, the Philippines, Portugal, and other parts of the world. That's why you'll find foods that don't fit neatly into one category. And that's kind of part of the fun. You might have traditional Hawaiian dishes one day, then Japanese-inspired food the next, then Filipino food, and so on and so forth. Hawaii has a serious food culture, and some of the best experiences happen away from the major hotel districts. If you're willing to explore, food becomes part of the adventure. Another area of Oahu that deserves attention is the Midwest coast. This is the side of the island facing the Pacific, and the scenery is spectacular. Landscape becomes greener, the pace slows down, and the feeling is completely different from downtown Honolulu. One of the pleasures of driving this part of Oahu is that you don't necessarily need a strict itinerary. Sometimes the best strategy is simply to drive, find a beautiful viewpoint, stop, take photographs, keep going, find another one. That's something you can't really experience if your vacation is just built around a schedule. Sometimes Hawaii is best experienced when you leave room for something unexpected. Even if you're staying in Waikiki, don't assume the beach is your only attraction. Diamond Head is one of the most recognizable landmarks in Hawaii. A volcanic crater dominates the skyline. The hike is popular and for good reason. The views from the top are spectacular, but there's an important lesson here. Hawaii is not simply a place where you sit beside the ocean. It's a place where you can interact with the landscape. You can hike, snorkel, paddle, explore volcanic terrain, visit waterfalls, and so much more. And you can spend an entire day doing something that had absolutely nothing to do with sitting beside a swimming pool. Now let's leave Oahu, because if you really want to experience Hawaii beyond Waikiki, you need to consider other islands. Maui is probably one of the most popular alternatives. Maui offers a very different experience. It's famous for beaches and resorts, of course, but it also offers mountains, valleys, rainforests, waterfalls, and some extraordinary scenic drives. One of the most famous is the Road to Hana. And here's some advice. Don't treat the Road to Hana as simply a race to reach Hana. That's missing the point. You have winding roads, bridges, waterfalls, jungles. Look, the mistake is trying to cram the entire experience into a few hours. Just slow down and leave early. Allow for time and don't try to see absolutely everything. You can't. That's the point. Maui also offers one of Hawaii's most extraordinary landscapes in Hala'akala'ala. Helelekela. Helekela. I can't pronounce it, but this enormous volcanic summit rises dramatically above the island. The landscape up there looks almost extraterrestrial, and you leave the tropical beaches behind and climb into an environment that feels completely different. One of the most famous experiences is watching the sunrise from the summit, and it is spectacular. But there's a catch. Everyone else knows it's spectacular too. That means that the sunrise can require significant planning and reservations depending on current park requirements. And it can be cold. Let me repeat that. It can be cold. You're in Hawaii. You're thinking of tropical beaches. And suddenly you're standing at a high elevation wearing every piece of clothing you packed. So plan accordingly. This is another example of why Hawaii isn't one climate or one environment. You can be swimming in the ocean in the afternoon, standing above the clouds later the same day. Then there's the island officially known as Hawaii, the Big Island. And if you want variety, it's hard to beat that. Big Island is enormous compared with many people's mental picture of Hawaii. It's got your volcanoes, you got your black sand beaches and rainforests and dry landscapes. Snow can even fall at high elevations under the right conditions. Now, think about that. Snow in Hawaii. That's how dramatically the environment can change. Then there are the volcanoes. Hawaii Volcanoes National Park gives visitors the opportunity to experience volcanic landscapes on a scale that's difficult to comprehend unless you're standing there. The ground itself tells a story. You can see where lava once flowed. You can see how dramatic volcanic activity has shaped the island. And that's one of the things that you gotta love about Hawaii. You're not simply looking at scenery, you're looking at geology in action. Now let's talk about Kauai. If Oahu is energetic and Maui is sophisticated, Kauai often feels like Hawaii turned up to maximum natural beauty. It's known as the Garden Island for a reason. It's lush, it's green, it's dramatic, and the mountains are incredible. One of the most famous areas. There are different ways to experience this, including boat tours, hiking, and scenic flights depending on conditions and availability. That means you sometimes have to experience Hawaii from the ocean or from the air. And that's when you really begin to understand how wild these islands can be. Now let's talk about something that's especially relevant to luxury travels. Luxury Hawaii isn't necessarily about staying in the biggest hotel. In fact, sometimes the most luxurious experience is the one that gets you away from the crowds. Private transportation, private excursions, maybe a villa, a high-end resort with exceptional service. These are experiences that's going to transform your trip to Hawaii, because luxury is not just about the room, it's about the whole trip. You know, imagine landing in the airport and having somebody waiting for you. The luggage is handled, your transportation is ready, you arrive at your resort without spending an hour figuring out where you want to go, and so on and so on. Final thoughts. So, should you visit Waikiki? Absolutely. If you've never been to Hawaii, Waikiki can be an excellent introduction. But don't stop there. Get out, explore, rent the car, take the drive, visit another island, try something you've never done. Eat somewhere outside of the hotel district, watch a sunset, watch a sunrise, get into the mountains, and just slow down. Because the hidden truth about Hawaii is that the most memorable part of your vacation may not be the famous beach you saw in the brochure. It could be the road that took you there or the little restaurant you discovered. And that's what great travel is really about. It's not about collecting destinations, and it's not about collecting experiences. Waikiki is only one chapter in the Hawaiian story. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Travel Secrets with TV's Dave Galvin. Look, if you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to the podcast, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who's dreaming about Hawaii. And if you've been to Hawaii before, I want to know. Did you stay in Waikiki or did you get beyond it? Because once you get beyond Waikiki, you may discover that the Hawaii you've been looking for was there all along. So until next time, travel smarter, travel better. We'll see you around the world.